Welcome everybody to today's webinar, where we will be discussing how to talk to your customers about the Ethical Charter Implementation Program, or ECIP as it's commonly known. First off, for a little bit of context, ECIP is an industry collaboration led by major buyers and suppliers committed to supporting the entire produce supply chain on a continuous improvement journey towards more responsible labor practices. ECIP is guided by an advisory group that includes Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, Kroger, Target, McDonald's, along with 4 of their suppliers. Today, we will be focusing on what sales and marketing teams need to know to get started with ECIP. My name is Madeline Edlin, Product Marketing Manager with the Equitable Food Initiative, or EFI. EFI serves as the supporting organization that provides ECIP software platform and provides technical support. A couple of housekeeping items before we get any farther. If you have any questions arise throughout, feel free to pop those in the chat. We will be gathering them and answering them at the end. So as they come up, pop them in or save them for the end. To kick things off, we'll be hearing from Jim Hancock, Vice President of Merchandising from Sam's Club.
Hello, good afternoon. Everybody's still awake. We're getting closer. That's some great work. Right, small steps make a big difference. So really good to see that. My name is Jim Hancock, and I have the pleasure of leading the Sam's Club Produce and Floral team. Excited to be here today. We are talking about people, some of our people strategy. And a few years ago, we started working on, with industry leaders, the ethical charter for the produce industry. And that was a set of principles and ideas that we could all agree to about how we would treat people. And everyone rallied around that. I'm happy to report that at Sam's Club, over 99%, and at Walmart, over 98% of all suppliers have endorsed the ethical charter. So thank you for your support on that. That's a big deal. And now we're moving to the next step, the implementation. We worked last fall to roll out the ethical charter implementation program. We call it ECIP because the other's too long to say. And but it's a tool that you can enroll, sign up for to get ideas, best practices on how to improve people procedures inside of your organization. And the nice thing about this ECIP tool is we worked with lots of other retailers, food service, so that you're not coming at all of us differently with a different audit, a different procedure. This is something that's universal for a couple of different, for our industry, for all your customers. And I think it's really going to be good. We're off to a great start. Over 50% of our growers and suppliers have already engaged in the platform. So we're moving along and making progress. Now, I will say, I just want to add, I know a lot of you have invested a lot of time and money into social certifications, and that is all good work. We're not saying any of that was wasted. That works well in place of ECIP or works well alongside of ECIP. So continue to do that. And if you're a non-produce supplier in the room and you want to engage in people activities along this line, check out the Gigaton platform or Gigaton portal, and you'll be able to go there and find supplier leadership people, enter some specific goals for your business, and you can track progress, and we'll all celebrate those together.
Amazing. Jim outlines the importance of capacity building as well as lifting up hard-earned social responsibility certifications. To talk a little bit more about that, we have Peter O'Driscoll, Executive Director of Welcome, Peter.
Good day, all, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining the webinar about this very important subject of the Ethical Charter Implementation Program. I think it's helpful to everybody to remember where this came from. Those of you who've been in the industry for a while will certainly remember 2014 when the LA Times series on labor violations in Mexico jolted the industry. What is now the International Fresh Produce Association responded by forming an unprecedented joint committee to develop a series of principles about responsible labor practices. And those principles were published in 2018 in the Ethical Charter. And the Ethical Charter, in many ways, is a statement of a lot of the values and principles that the industry has long upheld. but it didn't include an enforcement or verification mechanism. And there was a realization among a number of buyers and suppliers that endorsing those principles was a positive step, but that it was also important to go beyond endorsement to action. And so EFI has been in discussion with major retailers, including Walmart and Sam's Club, Costco, Kroger, Target, and McDonald's over the last 6 years around the development of a program that would support the industry to engage suppliers and growers in a continuous improvement journey towards full realization of the principles of the Ethical Charter. We piloted a variety of different approaches in 2020 and 2021. And then starting in 2022, we landed on the concept of what is now the ECIP program. And essentially what we learned through our pilot program is that given the scale of the number of growers in the produce industry, we needed an approach that wasn't based on auditing or compliance. We wanted to first support growers and suppliers to understand the principles of the Ethical Charter and to strengthen the management systems that they would need to meaningfully implement those principles at field level. And so as you come into the ECIP program, the first thing that you should understand is that we're not here suggesting an audit or a compliance test. ECIP is instead a capacity building program, which is designed to support the strengthening of management systems. ECIP does not measure compliance, but it does measure what we call credible engagement in efforts to strengthen those management systems over time. And we do want to emphasize that coming into this system, as you walk into the system and learn the principles and learn the different management systems, we understand that there's a lot of room for growth for any organization there. ECIP is not testing perfection or perfect implementation. What is instead asking for is an honest self-assessment that can provide the basis for benchmarking improvement over time. One of the reasons that the retail sector was particularly interested in a program like ECIP was to get data on labor practices at field level. Many of you know that most major buyers will require a facility level audit of a pack house or a processing facility, but they don't have any indication of what labor practices are in place at field level, and they do understand that that's where a lot of labor risk resides. And so the idea was to build through partnership with suppliers access to growers to understand and support and strengthen labor practices at field level. In order to build this system, ECIP is now governed and has been for the past 2 years by an advisory group. It includes those major buyers I listed before. But in order to make ECIP effective, you should also understand that suppliers, large suppliers, have been involved in the design and implementation of the program for the past 2 years. As you see, Taylor Farms, Tanimura and Antil, Bonduelle, and NatureRipe have been actively participating in making sure that there's real value in the program as a capacity building tool to strengthen management systems. Moving forward, we should also emphasize that because the Ethical Charter is created and owned by the International Fresh Produce Association, we've also kept IFPA fully abreast of all developments in the program, and IFPA has a representative on the advisory group. As we move towards the future, we can say that since November of last year, 257 suppliers have come into the ECIP program, bringing more than 1,000 of their grower partners with them. As of September of this year, we've launched a supplier program that many of you are now learning about, which is designed to support your efforts to strengthen and support your growing network, your sourcing network, to implement the principles of the Charter. And in November, we will be ready to present the first engagement results of this year of ECIP implementation to the buyer community. We recognize that full implementation of these principles will be a long journey, a multi-year process. ECIP is an iterative platform. We are adding functionality over time to strengthen and improve the resources that you find on the program, and to create new tools that will support the ongoing strengthening of the program over time. So we do want to make sure that you understand that we are starting a journey together. Our goal is to make this tool available and to be used by the entire produce industry as the industry responds to public pressure to demonstrate real concern for responsible labor practices. At the same time, it's important for you to understand that because it's a capacity building program rather than a compliance program, the data that is entered into this system will be anonymized, and your commercial relationships will not be threatened by the specific responses that you provide for the self-assessment. However, we will also be providing meta-level aggregated data about overall industry progress towards full realization of the program. So thank you for being here. We're delighted that you are participating in this process. I can tell you that last week I sat with senior produce leadership at Costco. These past 2 days, I sat with senior leadership at Walmart. And there's real energy and excitement at the retail level about the implementation of this program, the progress that you all have made so far. And EFI wants to continue to support you in this journey, and we look to being there for you as your questions and concerns arise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for that overview. That was fantastic. Up next, we have Kenton Harmer, EFI's Director of Market-Based Impact, to walk us through how retailers engage with ECIP, upcoming features, and some important dates. Welcome, Kenton.
Thank you, Madeline. There is an important date that's upcoming that the folks in this webinar should be aware of, and it's November 4th. November 4th is when the buyer dashboard component of ECIP goes live. And you're seeing a mock-up of it. It'll look very, very similar to this. And I just want to walk everybody through this so you really understand how your work is being presented to your customers. And then we can talk about how to make sure you're representing your organization in the best possible way that you can be. So what the buyers will begin to see on November 4th is a listing of all of the suppliers that are in the ECIP ecosystem, rankable by credible engagement, right? And again, and Peter talked about that concept of what really matters right now is to figure out who is really engaging in this work. And that is represented by the star graphic that you see on the left-hand side. So the buyers are going to have an opportunity to be able to go in and look at the supply chain and be able to see who's really credibly engaged, who needs some extra support, and who is really struggling on this manner. And that's just a really key thing for everybody to understand about how the buyers will be consuming the information that they'll see on this dashboard, right? And the way each buying partner is creating their own workflows and their own requirements independent of each other as per required by antitrust and anti-collusion regulations. But what you can expect from each of them is that they're going to be really looking at the supply chain, and there's all kinds of filtering and sorting capacities so that they can look at just tomatoes, or they can look at just different categories, if you will. And they're being counseled to look at that population in thirds, where we take the top third, the folks that are really heavily engaged, the 2-star, the 3-star, and eventually the 4- and 5-star suppliers, right? And say, these are the folks that need more business, right? These are the folks where you push more business to, because these are the folks that are the most engaged and represent the least amount of risk in your supply chain. The second third, these are the folks that are in there. They're doing some stuff. They may be blocked. They may be struggling. What's the support that we can give them? And we will be working with our retail partners to really figure that out, saying, okay, if you're in that middle third, cool, we got you. But then EFI and your buying partners we'll be able to provide some support so that you can get your organization to a higher level if that's where you want to be. That bottom third, the folks that don't engage in this or don't engage credibly in this program, that's when the buyers will be initiating very real, very difficult, very challenging conversations to understand why the organizations down there are not being part of this industry initiative to raise the whole floor on workforce management practices. So all of that rule of three is going to be based on this dashboard, which goes live. So it's just really important to know what your buyers and what your customers are going to be seeing. And then we can sort of talk about, like, how do you make sure your organization is where you want it to be? And we want to really take special attention on this particular webinar, that you may not be the person that is doing the work and entering the answers inside of ECIP. You may have the relationship with the buyers, or maybe some other place in the organization. So we want to just make sure we're constantly looping this back around and saying, if you're not actually the person entering the responses, how is it that you can find the right person in your organization and collaboratively work forward on this effort? And Deanna, who will come up next, will sort of talk a little bit about how you can do that on platform, right? But a second deadline, or not deadline, a second important date that's coming up is the Global Show in Atlanta, where there will be an ECIP event that is going to have high buyer representation. And the buyers are going to be in the room, and they're going to be wanting to talk about where your organization is in terms of your ECIP journey, right? So what we can do in the next few minutes is just walk through and say, how do you enter that reception? And Leanne's going to give you all the information on that reception, and so that you can be there in the room with your customers. But how do you walk into that room ready to talk about this stuff, right? And we're going to say, the best way to walk into that room is as part of our leadership circle. And the leadership circle concept is where we look at everybody that's in the program, and we look in who is showing exemplary engagement to this point, and what the threshold for that coming up to the event in Atlanta is who are our 3-star suppliers. So I just want to walk you through really quickly. Deanna next will augment this information. How do we get you to be a 3-star supplier by October 11th, when we are going to set the leadership circle for the Atlanta event? So first off, come into ECIP and set up your supplier profile. I'm sure many of you already have. If you haven't, and when you're having issues around passwords or logins or links or anything, please reach out to support@ethicalcharterprogram.org. We'll walk you through it. We'll get you into the system. We'll get your profile completely set up. That will earn you a star, right? Just being represented in the system as you need to be, that's your first star. There's recognition that comes when you endorse the ethical charter. As Peter said, ethical charter is actually owned by IFPA. IFPA has a separate and independent process for endorsing the ethical charter. You do that at ethicalcharter.com. Go over to their website, engage in their process if you haven't already, become a named endorser to the ethical charter through IFPA, right? Come back into Supplier Lab and tell us that you've done that work, and that will help earn you the stars that you need going into Atlanta and going forward. Number 3 is provide a credible response to how big your grower network is. How many growing operations are there that are supplying the product that you are selling to our buying partners, right? It's just really important. And we know that this number ebbs and flows constantly, but there's a lot of interesting benefit that comes from being able to say what size your grower network is. The system is designed to calibrate that if you have a small supply chain, then there's certain things that you do and don't have to do. If you have a large supply chain, there's certain things you do and don't have to. We're trying to calibrate the lift so that regardless of where you are in terms of the size of your organization and your grower network, that we're giving you achievable goals to get. Give that number in the system, and you are earning part of a star to get you to become a 3-star grower. Fourth, 15 management systems. Go in, credibly answer them. Remember Peter's words about you will not get punished if you are answering yourself as saying, hey, we're really struggling in here. That's not the point of this system. The point is do a credible assessment of yourself as you are today and know that you won't be punished for being anywhere on there, but the software and the program will be able to help and support you to move it in the direction you want to go in. And number 5 is get your growers into the system. So there's an invite process. We can help you with it if you need it. It's very intuitive. Get your grower networks all with active subscriptions in Grower Lab. If you complete these steps by October 11th, you will be a 3-star supplier. You will be in the leadership circle, and you will get special recognition in Atlanta. And with that, Madeline, I promised some folks that would dig deeper into actually how to do this on the platform.
Yes, you did, and I shall provide those folks. Awesome. Thank you, Kenton. Up next, we have Deanna Monroe, EFI's data manager, to give us a brief demo of the ECIP platform, how to log in, where to look for your company's engagement score, and more. So, Deanna, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Madeline. Welcome, everyone. So today I'm going to be showing you where to find all of those important data points that Kenton mentioned so that you can, number 1, make sure you understand how to join that leadership circle at the global show in Atlanta. Number 2, so you know where the data is feeding into those buyer dashboards that Kenton just showed you. And then number 3, where that data is coming from that's feeding into those industry-wide reports and those retailer reports that are coming out at the end of the year. So on your dashboard, when you log into the platform, you're going to see your at a glance stats here. This first number is going to let you know how many growers you have in your supply chain, how many growers you've invited, how many growers have accepted that invite. Of those that have accepted that invite, how many have subscribed, and then how many of those subscribed growers have completed the assessment. And then on the far right here, you're going to have your supplier engagement profile where you have all 5 stars. If you hover over each star, it lets you know how or which star that is as you earn them. To learn more about how to earn those stars, you're going to click Learn More. And here's a lot of good information to let you know how you can earn those stars so you can join that leadership circle in Atlanta. So if we go back to your supplier dashboard, you can gather more information about your growers that you've invited into Grower Lab. You'll have their name, the % complete of the assessment, their last activity. So that's going to be the last time they logged into their grower account. And then you have your grower engagement profile here. Again, if you hover over it, you'll be able to see what stars that grower has earned. And then the grayed out areas are the stars that the grower has yet to earn. One other thing I wanted to show within Lab itself is in the Learn channel. When you click on the section, you can go into that particular management system and add notes. So these notes you can write and they will be seen by your users internally. They won't be seen by anyone at EFI. They won't be seen by your buyers, but they'll be seen by anyone that has access to your supplier account. And then just to quickly show on the assessment channel is where you're going to be answering the assessment questions. And these are the 5 responses. And then just to back up a little bit, if you are not already a user in the system, I suggest reaching out to someone in your organization that is in your sustainability department, someone that is in your food safety department, or we've seen a lot of HR personnel that are already users in the system. So if you're not a user in the system, reach out to someone in those departments in your organization and have them invite you into the system so you can have access to all this data. If you have any questions or concerns, I manage our support desk. You can reach out to us at support@ethicalcharterprogram.org, and I'm sure we can put that in the chat as well. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to help. And with that, Madeline, I'll stop sharing.
Amazing. Thank you, Deanna. All right, we have one more guest. We have Leanne Rusamenti, EFI's Director of Marketing and Communications. And Leanne is going to give us some ideas and tips on talking about ECIP with your retail customers, an opportunity for collateral at the global show, as well as an invite to an exciting event that Kenton teased a little bit. So Leanne, over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, the first point that I want to make is the importance of talking to all of your buyers. You have seen the logos of the retailers who are involved in the ECIP program, and those retailers have made a great commitment to the program. However, they are in various stages of progress in educating their buyers or merchants about the program. Your specific buyer at Walmart, Target, Costco, or Sam's might not know all the details about the program, but it is very likely that they've heard of it. So if they don't bring it up, you should still feel like it's an opportunity to tell your social responsibility story. If you have major buyers who are not yet represented in this program, we would love your help. Please know that we are talking to other major buyers about coming into ECIP, striving for that singular approach to labor practices across the industry. But you all have a great opportunity to express to them from your perspective why having a uniform, consistent program across the industry that doesn't require audits, it is scalable and an achievable way to address labor practices and strengthen work around the ethical charter. To support you in that conversation, we have a fact sheet that you can share with buyers about the program, or maybe you just take some points off of it to talk about the program. It's on the website, ethicalcharterprogram.org/suppliers. Scroll down to the bottom and you'll see a list of 3 PDFs, including a buyer-focused one. The second point that I want to share is the opportunity to contextualize ECIP around your greater social responsibility efforts. Whether a buyer has asked you or you bring up ECIP to your buyer, it's an opportunity to broaden the conversation and include any relevant information about field level certifications that your growers have earned, how your company has supported growers through labor and social responsibility practices, maybe even what your company ethos is around worker engagement. From EFI's perspective, the groundbreaking part of the ethical charter is the section around respect for professional conduct. The inclusion of the principles in that section, they were worker communication, responsible recruitment, continuous improvement, and inclusive management systems. Including those in the charter was a signal from the industry that we're going to look at labor practices differently. As a marketer or salesperson, if you're trying to differentiate your approach, stay ahead of the next retail requirements, you want to align to and leverage this opportunity. How has your company looked at labor practices through this lens? Where in those principles are you focusing? Maybe you're making an impact in a certain area. Where are you doing good work? A little bit maybe on the controversial side would even be talking about where you're needing help or falling short. As Peter and Kenton highlighted, the philosophical approach to labor practices has really changed with the inception of ECIP, from compliance to capacity building. The buyers that we've met with are really welcoming a true open conversation to best understand where the industry is. That aside, again, as a marketer, bring up your work around some of these specific principles in your conversations for ECIP and social responsibility. I would also really encourage you to read the charter, especially that part on respect for professional conduct. You can access that where Kenton sent you earlier, ethicalcharter.com. On the next slide, what you've heard earlier, but I just wanted to hit home, are these 2 critical dates coming up. By next Friday, October 11th, you want to have as much info flowing into ECIP Lab from both your company and your growers if you want to be named as part of the ECIP Leadership Circle and recognized by retailers at the October 17th event. Regardless of the amount of progress you make by that next Friday deadline, you still want to underscore this to your team that starting on November 4th, retailers and buyers will gain access to that buyer dashboard where suppliers are ranked in order of engagement with ECIP Lab. The best thing to do is ensure that your team is working to bring growers into the platform. This is something that we've been asking since last November, but it will be a key metric in the Leadership Circle designation and the buyer dashboard because growers' progress in engagement is directly reflected in your supplier engagement profile. Please ask clarifying questions around this when we open up the Q&A. And then on the last slide, the big news of the week, we're all preparing for Atlanta. 3 different points for you. First, mark your calendars and get your team pulled together to join the ECIP reception on Thursday, October 17th, starting at 3 p.m. Whether your company is named to the Leadership Circle or not, please plan to attend that reception and speak with the buyers who are behind this program. We have confirmed attendance from buyers with Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, and Target. And we anticipate retailer remarks happening around 4 o'clock, but we'll stay flexible based on their schedules. If you could RSVP for yourself and your team members at ethicalcharterprogram.org/event, that would be really helpful. At that event, we're going to have some collateral pieces that you can pick up from us. We have these 8x8 large stickers that are designed to go, I hope they're coming through on my background. They're designed to go on the floor, but you can really use them anywhere in your booth. And we'll also have these foldable tent cards that you can pop up in your booth. Just see Madeline or I at that event. We'll get you set up. If you do want to create your own materials, I know it's a little bit of last minute notice to include the ECIP logo, reach out to us at media@equitablefood.org and we'll work with you to get what you need. Last thing, since this is a new program, creating some kind of elevator pitch or talking points for your team going to Atlanta might be really helpful. You've got your social responsibility story. How do you want to expand and ask about ECIP into what you're doing and what you're proud of that we talked about earlier? The basic facts of ECIP. What is it? Which retailers are involved? Make sure that your team is not surprised when that's brought up. One important message to carry might be that you are grateful for the steps of the industry to take this uniformed approach and an industry-wide view to labor and social responsibility. And of course, you really want to hit on the fact that you're engaged with ECIP as a supplier, that you're inviting growers onto the platform, include stats wherever you can. Deanna just showed you where you can look at stuff. Maybe you say we're a 3-star supplier. We have X number of Gold Star certified growers on our platform and in our supply chain. We've brought Y growers and we're eager to support them in labor management systems. I think you will find that anything you include that communicates your participation and leadership with ECIP will be really well received by buyers.
Awesome. Thank you, Leanne. I'm really excited about Atlanta, everything we have going for it. All right, so that was all the presentation we have. I would like to bring everybody back up to the stage to get into our Q&A. So welcome back, Deanna, Kenton, and Peter. All right, like I said, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat. We will continue to answer them. But to kick things off, I've got one for you. All right, it says, can we go back to the buyer dashboard? What should my company be doing to be ready?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So again, just let's remember what the buyer dashboard is. The buyer dashboard is the place where all your work and your effort and your engagement gets represented to your customer. So what you can be doing to get ready to make sure that your organization is showing up as high up on that dashboard as is appropriate is get your profile set up, get your growers invited, record the size of your grower network, really spend some time on the Learn channel regarding the 15 management systems that you will be assessing yourself against, right? That's if I can say anything, so much of this is going to be new or at least adjacent to present work for a lot of organizations. We get that. And so the Learn channel is where we as an industry also to come together with the same information and start using the same language around all of these concepts. So to get ready, spend lots of time in that Learn channel, bring the right people from your organization into that Learn channel, really digest the resources that are available to you there. And once you really feel like you got your arms around what that management system is, what it needs to look like, and what it's trying to do, move over to the assessment channel and say, where are we at today, right? With the idea that if you're not where you want to be, you'll get a lot of guidance on how to move up the ladder, if you will. So the best thing that you can be doing to be getting ready is be in the system, have your growers invited, and be working internally to really understand and assess yourself against the 15 management systems. And that is credible engagement. Therefore, that will be reflected in your engagement profile. And your readiness is you're able to come to an event like Atlanta and say to your growers, this is exactly where we've at, this is what we've learned, and this is what we're working on.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. All right, I have another one for you. I'm already in the system and I see that there are some areas where we aren't doing well. Should I be worried, and are my retailers seeing my response?
I can take that one, Madeline. And if possible, I would like to share my screen to show
Yeah.
everyone again. Excellent. So we are encouraging everyone to be incredibly honest as you answer each of the 15 management systems. No one outside of your organization is going to see your responses. And if you rate yourself high, it's not going to serve you in the long term, because this program is about continuous improvement. And a low score is not a bad thing necessarily. It actually enables you to get a longer term higher score, a higher engagement score. So you'll see these are the 5 responses here. And then if you have questions internally about why maybe a colleague rated you lower than what you thought, you can go back to the learning view, as Kenton mentioned, and you can talk internally. You can ask questions internally about why a management system was answered a certain way. But again, we encourage you to be honest, and having a low score is not necessarily a bad thing.
Madeline, can I also second that and say that having a lower score might actually be a really positive indication, as Diana said, of an honest assessment. And it really bears emphasizing that what ECIP is trying to do is not catch people doing bad things. We're really trying to focus on teaching people how to implement the kinds of management systems that avoid labor violations in the future. And so if you have rated yourself honestly and you've indicated that there are sections of the ethical charter where you really need to strengthen your practices, not only will you find resources and support to help you do that, but over time, as you benchmark your progress, right, that progress will show up. So the worst thing anybody could do is simply go into this assessment and rate yourself really, really highly and say, I'm done. In order for this program to be effective as a capacity building tool, not a compliance tool, a capacity building tool, those honest answers are the best way to engage. They will not harm your commercial relationships, but they will help you to track your progress over time.
Can I add something? We all want to answer this question.
Everybody take a shot. You next, Leanne.
I was just going to say that it's really refreshing to think that a marketing and sales person is on the platform and kind of looking at that assessment and those scores. Because as I said earlier, this is your opportunity to highlight with your customer what you're doing really well. So that is the perfect place to go in. And as Deanna said, leave a note, get curious, learn things. You might find a whole string of storytelling that you could incorporate into your marketing from things that are housed in the platform.
Yeah, and I was going to actually just sort of play on the other side of that too, Leanne, around how that philosophical shift that you talked about will play out even in Atlanta, right? I think there's a history in this industry of the conversation of a buyer saying, do you have this problem? And the only right answer is no, I do not have this problem. And we're good and we move on. That's old school. That doesn't exist anymore. What you can expect, some of the questions you can expect from your buyers in Atlanta and in annual reviews and everything else is, what are you working on? And that's that acknowledgement that this stuff is hard, it's new, it's complicated, and we don't need to be perfect at it right now. We just need to know it's out there, and we need to have a plan for moving in the right direction. And it's those credible answers in Supplier Lab, which will help you decide what is the best thing to be working on and how are you going to work on it. And that is a very valid answer to give to your buyers when you're talking to them, rather than trying to have to sort of pretend that everything's okay. They want to see who's doing the work more than anything.
I love it. I think we should add a tagline. ECIP, get curious. All right, I've got another one for you. Some of this sounds like it's impossible to ever be in compliance as things keep shifting, being added, and changing. How can we hit a moving target?
Well, let's go back to the first part of that question, right? How can we ever be in compliance? And we'll say it again, and we'll say it 100 times. ECIP is not a compliance test. ECIP is not about establishing an expectation of perfect compliance with all 54 management systems. What ECIP is designed to do is to help move an industry. And again, go back to the history that we started with. An industry which, to its credit, acknowledged that there are endemic challenges around labor in the industry. And the industry said, we need to get better. We plan to get better. And ECIP is the program that's designed to help suppliers and growers get better at labor practices. There are all kinds of reasons why that's important, right? All of you know there's a major labor shortage at field level. How do employers establish themselves as employers of choice? By creating decent workplaces with effective channels of communication and strong respect for labor practices. Those employers are going to attract scarce workers, and they're going to be more financially sustainable in the future. They're going to be able to meet customer demand. There are a lot of reasons why ECIP is a program not only for capacity building, but for value adding to support the industry, the best players in the industry to get better, and those who are just starting this journey to begin and to accelerate their progress. So, in order to be that program, ECIP will evolve over time. ECIP Grower Lab launched in November of last year. ECIP Supplier Lab launched in September. Starting in November, as mentioned, there'll be a buyer dashboard. But we can enhance the capacity of this program over time. We can learn from you, and we want to hear from you as users, suggestions for making this better. We can add resources and functionality over time, not to keep you in compliance, but to support what necessarily is a continuous improvement journey over time. So you are not being asked to hit a compliance target. You are being offered a resource which we hope will also continuously improve to support your continuous improvement as an employer and as a supplier who is sourcing product from growers who are actually upholding the principles of the ethical charter in practice.
Great, thank you, Peter. Looks like we have time for a couple more. So if anybody has any more burning questions, chat or Q&A future, and we'll get to them. We have a little bit of time. But here's another one for you. Can you clarify exactly what it is that my customer will be seeing from our work in ECIP Lab and our growers? These are tight deadlines in the middle of our busy harvest season.
Yeah, I'll take that. So if you are a supplier, what your buyer is going to see is they're going to see your engagement profile, right? They're going to see how many stars and which stars you've been able to earn through credible engagement in ECIP Lab. And they will be making, business decisions based on that. That's what they see. And again, we'll say this, we know this is a difficult thing to really internalize and feel okay about. And that's why we repeat it over and over again. They will not see which management system you have assessed yourself as really struggling at. That's not the information that's going to get passed on to them. They're going to see who is in the system learning and assessing and benchmarking and being able to show progress over time, right? That's what your customers are going to see. If you're a grower, it's very similar. You earn stars differently. You are an employer of farm workers, so there's different criteria how you earn those stars, but you're able to show your suppliers then that you have learned, you have assessed, you have benchmarked as part of a continuous improvement journey for you to become the best possible employer that you can be. We totally understand that your job is to grow these rich, nutrient-dense products and get them to market beautifully packaged at the right price and on time, right? The business of farming is a very, very intense and complex business, right? And this is just another thing, so it seems. So what we would say with that is this is now an important part of the business of farming. But as you come into it, and as you're hearing us talk about October 11th and November 4th and these different dates and stuff, is don't rush through the process in order to hit those dates, right? It's okay not to be great at some of these things right now, but be very, very precise about marking that in the system rather than just trying to get in and out as quick as you can and just not providing accurate and credible data into the platform. So it's a busy time for a lot of the industry right now. But please spend some of that time in the system, but move at the speed that you need to move. You're not going to get punished for not achieving perfection right now at this time or in the near future.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we got another question. Will we be sharing this recording? And yes, we will be sharing it. It will come out to anybody who registered for this event. So even if you had a colleague that wasn't able to make this live, they'll get an email with the recording, and so will you since you're here. So keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, everybody. I think that's all we have. Awesome. Thank you so much to my colleagues at EFI for joining in this amazing webinar, and have a great rest of your afternoon. I'll see you next time.